Today is the 20th day of the Hebrew month of Tevet, which is the second yahrzeit in memory of Rabbi Wilford Shuchat Zecher Tzadik Livracha, who served as rabbi of this community from the mid-1940s until his retirement in the early 90s, and then remained Rabbi Emeritus until his passing at the end of 2018. I want to share words of Torah from the Midrash, which was his passion, and his final work in his series on Midrash was on Abraham and the Midrash about the trials and the life of Abraham. And it speaks about famine, because that's a theme within our patriarchs, is that how they respond to famine. Abraham is brought down to Egypt as a foreshadowing of what will happen with his descendants. And the Midrash says that there was a famine in the days of King David, but really it wasn't supposed to be then. The original intent was that the famine had come in the days of Saul, prior to that moment, David's predecessor, but that God delayed the famine until King David came along. Why? In the words of the Midrash, Lo ba'u bimei bnei adam shfufim ela bnei adam giburim. Because God didn't bring the famine at the time of lowly or weak people, but rather at the time of mighty people, shehein yecholim la'amod bahem, because they could withstand, because they could confront the challenges. And then he goes on to explain that this is the concept when it comes to famines, and how we associate famines in the Torah with individuals. They're always connected to a famine in the days of this person or in the days of that person. Why are the famine being attributed to them? It's not that the famine is attributed to them, but the ability to overcome the challenge is attributed to them. Difficulties, and certainly on a larger scale, call upon leadership to stand up and to help people deal with those challenges. It's not always about solving the problem. It's about managing the problem, as we saw in the story of Joseph, how he managed the famine in the time of Joseph in Egypt. It wasn't that he prevented the famine from coming, but that Joseph was able, through his leadership, through his vision, and through his ability to communicate his vision, was able to provide for the people, even in difficult times, so that the impact of the difficulty wasn't felt as profoundly. It's not that he did away with the calamity, did away with the famine, but helped them deal with the famine. And that is the mark of leadership, as Rabbi Shushat's interpretation of this work, of this midrash. Leaders are there in difficult times to help people not only prevent the difficulty, avoid the difficulty, and sometimes that's inevitable, but know how to withstand it, know how to stand strong, know how to maintain a focus and strength, even in the most difficult of times. He was a great leader for this community in both great times and difficult times, as felt by so many. He was here at the helm of the congregation at so many of the major moments in the 20th century, and his memory continues to inspire us day in and day out, and his community and our community of Shar HaShamayim. Stay healthy, stay well, and stay connected.